What is up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast. Pretty big game on tap. Monday Night Football. The Bills travel to New Jersey to play the New York Jets. Make it make sense. Just kidding. I know the Bills are the only team in New York State, but they're going to go to New Jersey. They're going to play a pretty important game with Ryan Talbot, and we are going to talk about that game here today for a few minutes. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Excited to talk about this game. And like you said, huge game, Monday Night Football. The last for a little bit of time, at least, it feels like, of these primetime games. The Bills will be kind of through it after being in front of a national audience for quite a few weeks.
All right, so we're brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets. Right now, you can rush to the Tops Red Zone and get game day ready. Full slate of games on Sunday. Monday Night Football, Bills and Jets. Let Tops take care of you. Score big savings, winning recipes, and everything you need for the ultimate game day experience. Head to the Tops Red Zone in-store for all of your game day essentials and more. And I see a couple comments here. Greg and Griffin Plays over on YouTube talking about the running back situation. The Bills had a walkthrough practice today. They'll have their final practice tomorrow. So unfortunately, we won't have a clear-cut idea of where things are at tomorrow. But I don't know. I'm not very bullish on James Cook playing. I mean, he has not practiced all week. He was kind of off to the side a little bit, like strange yesterday, where he started off to the side when they were stretching, and then he went into like the offensive huddle for a individual period. He was taking a couple like handoffs, but he wasn't in pads. And then he went over and did his usual work with the training staff. So a little bit strange there. But again, like that turf toe injury, the way that foot hit, I'm not bullish on him playing. So Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, right? I am firmly in the camp that they're going to lean on Ty Johnson. We've seen them kind of decrease the workload on Ray Davis over the last couple of weeks. There's a lot to like about what we've seen at Ray Davis at times, and getting a chance to talk to him on Wednesday. It's a guy that hasn't lost confidence despite the kind of change here in playing time. But I think that they probably lean on Ty Johnson, but maybe more of a equal workload in this game as opposed to when, usually James Cook has the lion's share.
Absolutely. It's not looking good for James Cook right now, and not practicing all week long. But if you had to choose between those two backs, it feels like Ty Johnson will be the lead back to open up the game. I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe has 3/4 of the workload and you give Ray Davis 1/4. Maybe it'll be a little bit closer than that. But, Ty Johnson came on this past week, really outsnapped Ray Davis significantly. Davis playing one offensive snap, taking a back seat to Ty Johnson. Johnson being the guy that proved last year down the stretch he was a very capable number 2 back. But regardless of who gets what share amount, it's a significant drop-off going from James Cook to Ty Johnson and Ray Davis. And, you mentioned Ray Davis at times has looked okay, but he's left a lot to be desired too in terms of when he came in, when the Bills drafted him, he looked like that perfect complement to James Cook, the more physical back. He hasn't run with a very physical style so far this year. It's very early in his rookie season. Maybe this game against a Jets defense, which is very physical in their own regard, he can show up and show why the Bills drafted him. But no matter how it plays out, this is potentially a significant loss for this Bills offense.
You go back to the blueprint last year for this Bills team against this Jets defense, and it was a commitment to the running game between Latavius Murray, James Cook, and Ty Johnson. The Bills ran it 30 times in that game, and they averaged somewhere around just under 4 yards a carry. You got to grind against this team because they're not great against the run, but when they know that you want to do that, and let's be honest, the Bills have kind of flipped identity-wise this year when really what's been consistent for them on their offense has been their running game. Without James Cook, I don't know how much that changes, and I don't know how much that kind of spooks Joe Brady a little bit into relying on that run game. Could you see a scenario where we get into this thing, it's not going well early, and he maybe panics a little bit, gets away from the running game. And I think that's exactly playing into the Jets' hands if you do that.
Yeah, 100%. You're coming off of a game where Josh Allen just went 9 for 30. And the passing game wasn't clicking. And Khalil Shakir, which we'll get to in a minute, hasn't practiced all week either. So you're potentially without him. Your other options are a little bit banged up right now too, or some of them are. This does not bode well for the offense going into this game based on how they played last week and looking at the injury report right now going into this game on Monday.
I was listening to Greg Cosell today on his weekly hit with the guys over at One Bills Live. And, one of the big takeaways from his conversation with them was how alarming he found it watching the tape back from last week, the lack of an intermediate passing game for this offense. Like there's nothing happening in the middle of the field at that second level. It's all shots down the field or everything's happening at the line of scrimmage. And it's like, this is kind of the danger in how they kind of constructed this offense and the way they reimagined it a little bit. If you don't have an emphasis on that part of the field and you place all of your emphasis on the short term, you're missing a part of Josh Allen's game that if you go back to 2019, 2020, where he really exploded onto the scene, it was that intermediate passing game. A lot of it had to do with Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley and Stephon Diggs, obviously, but they got to get back to some of that. And I think part of the recipe there is leaning into 12 personnel a little bit more. They're playing it at a pretty high rate right now, Ryan. I think it's somewhere around 32%, but I think they got to get that a heck of a lot closer to teams like Kansas City, who plays in 12, like mid 40s,
right.
Baltimore that's playing in 12 on almost 50% of snaps. Leave your best players on the field. And I know Curtis Samuel returned to practice, but you got to rely on the guys that, are the ones that's supposed to be carrying this offense.
And real quick on Curtis Samuel, if he is going to play in this game, because he's been limited the last 2 days, one, there's an opportunity to put him in the backfield a little bit without James Cook in this lineup if he does not play. That's exactly how Joe Brady kind of unlocked him a little bit in Carolina back in 2020. Christian McCaffrey went down with an injury. They were able to use Curtis Samuel in the backfield, and then getting him out of the backfield, getting him some receptions and getting him going that way. So maybe that this will be a game where Curtis Samuel will, one, get some more carries than what we've seen, but two, run some routes where he's just not at the line of scrimmage trying to catch a ball and making something happen. I know that he has shown the ability to do that in the past, but you just mentioned a need for a guy that can run intermediate routes. This is someone that can create separation or historically has done so, can stretch the field, but he can also win in those intermediate areas. They need someone to step up. Why tight end, though? You're right. This percentage has been way too low. Dawson Knox is one of your best pass catchers in this offense, especially right now looking at the injury report. Get them both on the field. Get creative with their usage, how you get them lined up, look for potential mismatches there, because both can, win against linebackers. Both can win against members of the secondary, Knox being the more physical option of the two, but get them both involved because they need a few guys to step up on the offensive side of the ball if they hope to win this game on Monday night.
I think a lot of it goes into, there's been a lot made about the lack of trust maybe that Josh Allen has for, his collection of receivers and his players on offense. I mean, this is a different look offense. There's not a lot of proven vets. When Cole Beasley came over here, he was a proven guy. John Brown had done it in the league for a long time. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis earned the trust over multiple seasons. And right now it's just, I feel like it's a feeling out process in a lot of different ways. And, the problem with that is you're facing a string of defenses that cause significant problems for what they want to do. Not having Shakir in this game, I think not having Cook is horrible. And you want him, he's arguably your second best, maybe first best player on offense that's not named Josh Allen, depending on how you want to shake that thing up. But I think not having Shakir makes it more challenging to get this offense going. And then it's about, okay, who are they going to use to replace him in this game? I think it's going to probably be KJ Hamler, a guy that, a vet kind of guy that could come on, play all three spots. They kind of ran him in the slot during the training camp in the preseason. And I think Samuel, because you're going to get Samuel or you're going to get Shakir back. I think getting Samuel into a much more diverse role where you are leaning on him a little bit more on the boundary, he could do it. He's done it in his career. He did it with Joe Brady in Carolina all those years ago. I think maybe slotting in Hamler and leaning on your tight ends in this game is the way to go about it from a passing perspective, and then just challenging your offensive line. You know who's talked a lot of trash? Deion Dawkins about this defensive front for the Jets. And you think he's got his guys ready to go for this game? I would imagine that he does. So if you got time, if you have a good plan, which you'd hope on 8 days that Joe Brady can create that, puts the Bills offense in a decent spot to get back going again.
Yeah, and listen, I hope Deion Dawkins shows up in a big-time way along with the rest of the offensive line, because he has not let his hatred of the Jets, he has not hid that whatsoever. And I'm sure there's going to be some chirping if he gets beat, if this O-line gets beat in this game. And you look at guys like Will McDonald, who a year ago looked like a bust of a draft pick based on his inability to get on the field, being inactive some games. Now I've seen multiple games where he's had multiple sacks and the speed rush is there, and he's built up some muscle. They have some other good options in terms of getting after the quarterback. That O-line really needs to step up and protect Josh Allen, especially until Ty Johnson or Ray Davis step up and actually do something. I wouldn't be surprised if they're pinning their ears back and trying to go after Allen, making life miserable for him. So you need the O-line to step up in a big-time way. If Hamler is the option there, he needs to step up. And you're spot on about Curtis Samuel, because Jeremy White, after this last loss against Houston, put something on X about could really use a guy like this, and those highlights of Curtis Samuel, and Samuel beating guys down the field deep, beating guys in those intermediate ranges, yards after the catch. It's all the stuff you got excited about. That a guy like Matt Harmon too got super excited about when the Bills signed him in the offseason, and we just haven't seen any of it yet. And it's just one of the most confusing parts of this Bills offense through 5 weeks.
I think it's the injury. Like, that's what I'm putting it on, because it doesn't make sense. Like, they were so determined to add him to the mix, and the usage to me adds up to, okay, you have the toe injury. You start to wonder about his availability to start the season. He kind of makes his way back, but then you have this puzzling lack of usage. And then all of a sudden he plays this entire game last week, and then he pops up on the injury report for the toe again for a day off of practice. That to me tells me that it never really probably recovered 100%. And it's going to be something that he's going to have to manage, and probably affects him from a playing perspective.
It has to. And, I appreciate the fact that he gutted it out. He's been able to suit up through multiple games this year, despite this injury. But that has to factor into it, because there's already the prior relationship between the OC and the player. They thrived together a few years ago, and the inability to get him going so far this year just makes little to no sense.
Shout out to Football 301, hosted by Nate Tice, former guest in the Shout podcast. He does it with Matt Harmon over there at Yahoo Football. And I want to play this clip. I'm writing about this for Sunday. I'm doing a story on Dawson Knox, and listen to this stat, and I want to get your thoughts on it.
Their best personnel grouping right now is 12. Even if
I'm technologically challenged sometimes.
Just for that reason. I think their best personnel grouping right now is 12. Even if defenses match you with nickel, it doesn't matter. Just find ways. I think the run game's good. They have good runs, but you can't just go, all right, we're in jumbo now. All right, yep, get ready for a run. All right, now we're in 11. All right, now we're in jumbo again. Like that, it feels very how the Bengals felt a few years ago, where everything's very siloed, depending on what the personnel grouping is. But the last stat I had was 32 plays out of 11 personnel, which is 3 receivers. They averaged 3.4 yards per play, 22% success rate. They only had 7 successful plays. They had 9 plays out of 12 personnel, averaged 10 yards per play, 56% success rate. I know there's a lot of variables that go into this, that it's not just run more tight ends, but it's pretty obvious when Khalil Shakir is out, you need to just keep the tight ends on the field.
I don't know how they can't have gone back to the drawing board this week, studied their offense. Sean McDermott mentioned that they had to get back and analyze everything they've been doing and figuring out a way to maybe do it a little bit differently. And something he said in there is really important. And Cosell made this point as well. He thinks that they're way too dependent on their jumbo package right now. Like, they get it out there because teams will stay in nickel. But the problem is the Bills don't pass well in that setting.
Right.
So, of course, they run the ball pretty well, but there's no explosive plays in the pass game. So you almost lull yourself into sleep with the way that you rely on that solo package. If they could dial some things up for Keon Coleman one-on-one on the outside, or Samuel, or maybe they run 12 or 13 and make Alec Anderson one of the 3 tight ends, and then you can get Dalton Kincaid going somehow out of that formation. I just think they have to be a little bit more creative and find more answers and do something different than maybe, Albrecht isn't preparing for it. Oh, by the way, that's a sneaky storyline of this game, Ryan. There is a lot flying around in New York right now, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Jeff Albrecht has a lot on his plate, and he's going to have to call this defense. He's got to run the game and all of those little things. I know we talk about the 1 week bump for new head coaches, but I'm going to be watching this guy very closely. Like, does the defense take a hit? Is there any communication issues? If the offense is struggling on the first couple possessions and he's got to go spend all of his time in the offensive meeting rooms, how does he handle all of that? There were some growing pains for the Bills when they did that with Sean McDermott last year.
Yeah, no, and Albrecht has been a really good play caller for this defense, but you're right. It's a whole different ball game this week, knowing that he is going to be the head coach, wear a lot of different hats, have to make sure the special teams is where they need to be, doing what they need to be doing, the offense, the defense. I'm intrigued to see how it goes in their first game. And, the 1 game bump is certainly a thing where I've seen, teams don't always win, but they come out maybe a little bit more emotional. They play a really good half of football, maybe they show a little bit more life on one side of the ball, which would have to be the offense for the Jets because they have been abysmal there. But it's something to watch. But it's also going to be interesting to watch how this team plays coming back from London. They were in London last week, Matt. You remember sitting through that Bills-Giants game last year. It was brutal. The offense, the defense, they looked like they were sleepwalking for a good chunk of that game. Is that going to be an issue for the Jets in this matchup as well? There is something to be said about the whole fact of coming back from overseas and how it might affect you a little bit. Bills were able to find a way to win last year, but it was far from pretty in that game.
Shout out to Charles here. Great little stat. Bills ran the ball on first down 19 of 26 times against the Texans. Most of that while trailing. Got to be less predictable. I think that's a great take, Charles. I don't mind leaning into the run game, especially when you're getting a good yards per average. But it's about like changing up. There's been so many sets the last couple of weeks where they've run out of, where I thought, man, if you just sprinkle in even on 5 to 10% of those plays, some play action pass, it potentially changes the dynamic of drives. They have to be a little bit more creative in the way that they're calling plays. And I'll tell you, a lot of people want to talk about, the hot seat for Sean McDermott, and I get that. But to me, the hottest seat right now from where I'm standing is Joe Brady's. I feel like he's come under a lot of scrutiny nationally. People that really dive into the film are really questioning, there's the dryer, it's done, really questioning whether or not the Bills have the right person in place. And listen, you don't want to overreact. I do buy into what Joe Brady said this week. It's like if they had won their last 3 after dropping their first 2, the narrative would be like, the Bills got everything right. They're riding a 3-game winning streak. It's always kind of like how you look at things. But with that being the case against another really good defense, if this continues to be the issue where the lack of creativity and the play calling and just the overall direction of the offense doesn't improve, the heat continues to rise.
And it's so funny how this league works because after the Bills 3-0 start, there was an ESPN Insider article about which coaches are in line to potentially become head coaches the following season. And Joe Brady's name gets mentioned in there. He's the talk of the town. Offense has scored over 30 points per game. Everyone eats mentality is working. And you're right, now it's 2 weeks later and there's a lot of heat on this guy. Have the Bills been figured out? Why aren't they using more pre-snap motion? What's with the personnel packages? Injuries have factored into things. But the Bills still have to find a way to win. They have to find a way to beat a very good defensive New York Jets team this week that just shut down a Vikings offense that had been firing all cylinders through 4 weeks. The Vikings came out and they played pretty well in the first quarter. The last 3 quarters after that, Sam Darnold looked like the Jets Sam Darnold, and that offense couldn't move the ball. I think Aaron Jones being out definitely affected them, but you look here, James Cook might be out the whole game, not just after 1 quarter. And you saw their inability to run when that being the Vikings. I worry about that with Buffalo, with the Bills being too one-dimensional. And if they are, Josh Allen has to take some layups in this game. A lot of this falls on Joe Brady, but going back and watching the Texans game, there were opportunities for him to hit some shorter targets and get some easy yards, and he just wasn't doing it in that matchup. And I don't know the rationale. Maybe he wasn't trusting what he was seeing out there. Maybe he was just trying to have this game where he was getting big chunks of yards and moving the ball that way, but it wasn't working. Not with Mac Hollins down the field. Not with some of these shots that the Bills are trying. I'll be the first to say it looked like he had a touchdown with Dalton Kincaid in the middle of the field in that longer route, but the Texans linebacker just made a great play on the ball, batting it down. The Bills have to take some of those gimmies, though, the layups, the singles, whatever you want to call them. Allen has to be able to do that against the Jets, tire out that defense, get the ball out quickly so that way the offensive line isn't taking a potential beating in this game. And if he can make some plays with his arm, it's going to open things up for Ty Johnson and Ray Davis if James Cook does not go.
Oh, it's that time, like every episode, reminding everybody, if you haven't yet, try out the Shout Buffalo Bills Insider text line, 716-528-6727. Send that text. You get a response back. You can sign up, get a 2-week free trial, $3.99 a month after that. The Shout text line is brought to you by Carrie C. Beyer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litra, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give them a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. You look at the Jets injury report, Ryan, and CJ Mosley has been practicing this week. He's listed as limited in practice yesterday. Morgan Moses, he returned to practice this week on a limited basis. They've been playing Olu Fashanu. It hasn't gone well. So again, there it is. It's done. It's not going great on their offensive line. It's one of the biggest issues that they're facing. No matter how this one ends up going, who's available and whatnot. What do you think? Who is the key player? Because we mentioned at the top, Ed Oliver not practicing, not looking good once again. Where do you feel like the Bills have to really excel against this offensive line to effectively shut down this Jets offense?
I would say off the edge. I've seen their edge or their tackles get beaten quite a few times throughout the first 5 games this season. I mentioned this earlier this week. This needs to be a Greg Rousseau game. Greg Rousseau that beat up on a poor offensive line in week 1 against the Cardinals needs to show up in week 6 and beat up on a bad offensive line of the New York Jets. It's been too much of a disappearing act for Rousseau on the defensive line, where he just has not done enough. And this is a guy that's should be trying to play obviously for a monster extension. And after week 1, you say, okay, this guy's on his way. The Bills are going to have to break the bank for this guy or give him a significant raise. And now you're sitting there saying you're not seeing, enough of a growth in his game at this point. He needs to be more consistent. That seems to be the running trend with a lot of these guys that they've drafted. They'll have these hot streaks, 4 or 5 games, AJ Epinesa, for instance, then they disappear for just as long. As great as he was in week 1, he has not stepped up enough. So this is a game where he needs to beat up on a pretty poor offensive line on the edges at the offensive tackle spot and get after Aaron Rodgers, because Rodgers has taken some big hits and he has not fared well in games where that has taken place in terms of, looking like he's going to miss some time with an injury, but he's been coming back in. But he gets a little bit off after that point. He's thrown some bad interceptions. He's been inaccurate with the ball. The Bills have to hit him, and that is on Greg Rousseau's shoulders, in my opinion, Matt.
No, I think that's a great pick. I think the way that the Bills are kind of pivoting since Von Miller's suspension, you're seeing Javon Solomon on the edge on third down plays, moving Dwayne Smoot into the inside, which I think is their probably best look on third down. So that's the goal. Like, get him into a lot of third and longs, force them to kind of go back, have Aaron Rodgers drop back, and you're getting Taron Johnson back in this game, most likely. He's limited in practice, but the red non-contact is gone. So now you're thinking about that second level. This is going to be the first look, the first real true look at what this defense could be now with Taron Johnson, Terrell Bernard, and Dorian Williams playing alongside each other. You're excited about that. You get Taylor Rapp back, which Rhino Halloran reported today that he's going to wear the Guardian cap when he plays on Monday night. He'll be next to DeMar Hamlin, and then it's probably Cam Lewis in that dime nickel role, or that dime safety role. We'll see if they keep Jamarcus Ingram in that role or put it back on Cam Lewis. We will see. But yeah, it's got to be married together. And I think the coverage piece of it, we saw Terrell Bernard absolutely keep the Bills in that game with that big interception last week. They go down and score a touchdown there, it's over. Huge play by him. I think getting Taron Johnson back is going to be huge. On the line, though, it's another game for DeJuan Carter and Daquan Jones. Like, from a pass rushing perspective with Ed Oliver out, I think you need to pressure the quarterback with the guy that, if you go by the numbers, has been one of the best pressure creators on this defensive line over the last couple of seasons. They need Daquan Jones to be more of that kind of guy this week. I don't know if he's still in there, and you never want to doubt a guy. He's getting older. This is probably his last like true run. I know he's only 31 years old. I think he's 31 years old, actually. Let me look that up. They need more from him, Ryan.
Absolutely. And
32.
You've seen some splashes, some flash plays here and there, but not enough. And he is a guy that they thought was a key contributor the last few years when he's been here. The first 4 games last season, man, I'm not sure there was a better player in terms of constantly popping on film, making plays against the run, making quarterbacks move off their spot. He was playing at an elite level, and then he gets hurt. When you come back from the pec injury, you don't expect him to play at that level again that season, but you thought maybe he'd come back in 2024 and show some signs of the player that he was. It hasn't happened yet. And as good as you feel about the linebackers, the corners, and even the safeties going into this game against the Jets, it's not going to matter much if there's not enough push or pressure up front, because then you're going, it's hard to cover guys for that extra time. Garrett Wilson, the tight ends that they have, even some of the backs, they have a great 1-2 punch in the backfield, but they also have 2 backs that can catch the ball, especially Breece Hall. So they need to be really solid up front, D-tackle with Jones, and then off the edge, like I said, with Rousseau.
Thank you for checking in with us on this Friday, a couple days out from Bills versus the New York Jets on Monday Night Football. I got a story, Ryan, before we finish up here with our predictions for this game, which is going to be an interesting segment here, because I'm directly on the fence. I already am making my pick, but I'm on the fence for this game. So I was in Houston last weekend, and we got off the plane. It was a long day of travel, had a quick turnover, so couldn't eat. So I was like starving. And one of my favorite places there from the last time we were there, Velvet Taco.
Oh, yeah.
So I got off the plane, grabbed Beauvais was on my flight, and Jay Skursky met us there. And we just beelined over to a Velvet Taco, crushed like 3 or 4. I walk in and I'm sitting there, and a gentleman that's sitting at the end of this long table comes walking over, and he's like, "Hey, I just want to introduce myself. You're Matt Parrino, right?" And I'm like, "Yep." He's like, "I love Shout. Like, it's awesome. I listen to it all the time. My girlfriend's sick of it, or wife, whoever that was there with him. But I want to give a shout out to Matthew, because he said he listens all the time." Awesome. I love that when I see people out in public and they kind of come up to me and talk about, just loving the show. And we love all you. I appreciate you guys always making us a part of your podcast rotation, because there's a lot out there. And so don't get it twisted. We really, really appreciate it.
No, we don't take it for granted. Anytime someone approaches us out in public, it's a really cool feeling, first and foremost, to kind of be recognized like that. With your hair, I think it's kind of easy to recognize a Matt Parrino. There's a lot of bald guys like me out there, but
I don't know. You have a pretty distinct look there, Talbot.
I suppose I do. So it's not lost on us. It's very cool when that happens.
All right, so it's prediction time. Bills versus the New York Jets. I didn't see do you have the latest line here, Ryan?
I do not. No.
Oh, goodness, Talbot. Killing me, Smalls. So the latest line looks like Bills -2.5 on the road. So listen, I know the Jets are going through it right now. This is a team that 4 weeks ago, I think, was the division favorite. That's obviously flipped a little bit. They fired their coach, so it's a different situation. What do you got? What's your prediction for this game?
Yeah, I'll be Mr. Negative again. I'm taking the Jets in this game until I see the offense do anything without Khalil Shakir and potentially not without James Cook. I'm hard pressed to take the Bills. I mean, last week Josh Allen was 9 of 30, and now you're taking away another weapon, it seems, with James Cook not practicing this week. So there's a lot of pressure on Joe Brady to really show that, okay, when things like this happen, I can adapt. I can come up with calling a game that will play to their strengths. And if there is a way that the Bills win this game, I think it'll be Dawson Knox being heavily involved in the passing game. My bold prediction will be that he'll probably end up with double the amount of receptions that he currently has. So, which isn't anything huge. He has 3 right now. So I have him having at least 6 in this game, but I have the Bills losing a close game. I don't have a lot of belief in Aaron Rodgers in this Jets offense, especially the passing game. I do think Breece Hall, despite having 2 bad weeks in a row on the ground, can do some damage against the Bills. Braylon Allen, too. I think that's a great 1-2 punch. And then defensively, the way that they've been playing, it's going to be another tough matchup unless some guys step up in this passing game, whether it's a wide receiver or tight end for the Bills.
Listen, I don't feel good about it, but I am picking the Bills to win 21-18, and for a couple reasons. I think number one, this is a head coach that has a proven track record of getting his guys to kind of fix it when they're kind of on a slide, right? Like to answer the bell, come out after taking a couple big haymakers and respond. And I think that that's what this game is all about, is responding after 2 weeks where it didn't really go your way. I think defensively, they're getting healthier in important spots. And I think in spots where it's going to really challenge this team. Are they going to probably be able to run it at times? Probably. But I think having Taron Johnson back for this game against, to your point, against Hall and Allen helps. Like he's a great tackler in the run game. We'll see if the forearm makes it difficult at all. But I also think that Josh Allen is probably going to be a little bit more composed in this game. Usually it's the Jets that give him that early season befuddled game. Like I feel like last week was the one that you could kind of write off as like, all right, this is the really bad Josh Allen game. There's one every season, and he usually finds a way to respond. And so I think that he's going to do that even without Khalil Shakir, because I think there are some answers to if they lean into, the basics a little bit more. Just go out in 12 personnel, get your 5 guys out there that aren't blocking and figure out a way to be nuanced in the routes that you're asking them to run, have options at all 3 levels, and let your quarterback go to work. That's what he's here for. That's what you paid him for. And I think that they'll do enough. I think there's too many moving seats. You have Albrecht, who's moving from defensive coordinator over to running the whole show while still having to kind of hold that up. You have Nathaniel Hackett, who's been asked to go in the corner and sit on his hands. And then you have Downing, who's getting thrown to the wolves, this absolute mess of an offense to try to figure out a way to deploy all of these different players. You have all of this underlying tension with Aaron Rodgers. I don't care what anybody says. He had a big role in what happened with Robert Saleh. And then like the discourse or the discord between him and his top receiver, Garrett Wilson. You think Garrett Wilson likes logging on to social media or any website every day and seeing the Jets linked to Devontae Adams when he's supposed to be the guy there? There's deep-seated problems with this Jets team. And that's what I'm leaning on more than anything else, in that their dysfunction will lead to the Bills being able to find, eke out a tight one. I got a 21-18 Bills.
Love it. Yeah. For the Bills conspiracy theorists out there, I saw Devontae Adams follow Josh Allen today on Instagram. Don't get too excited about stuff like that. DeAndre Hopkins followed Allen last year too at one point. But listen, if the Bills do lose this game, they do have to shake things up and make a move. Not necessarily for Adams, but they would have to go out of, if the passing attack is not performing.
If they lose this game and the offense stinks again, I think they make a move before the Titans game.
Oh, yeah, I agree 100% with that. But, you raised some good points about the coaching staff. I saw a great meme of it's the older guy wearing a red striped sweater, and he's holding up another red striped sweater that's like identical. He got it for a Christmas gift, and it said like Nathaniel Hackett calling plays versus Todd Downing. It's like the same thing. Downing is not considered to be this brilliant offensive mind. So a lot of Jets fans are not too enthralled with that. I think, though, if the Bills win this game, the linebackers play a big time role in it. Their linebackers struggle a little bit in coverage. They actually kind of went away a bit from their veteran there that you mentioned, playing a lot of reps there because of the way he's struggling in coverage at this point in time in his career. So we'll see if the Bills can kind of attack that area, and if they can, maybe they can eke out a win on the road.
If you want to win on Sunday and Monday, hosting people for the games, for the Sunday slate, maybe the Monday Night Football at the house, head over to Tops Friendly Markets. They got you covered with all the latest deals. You go to topsmarkets.com to get all of the best deals. And also they kind of got an exclusive offer right now on Buffalo Sabres home game tickets. So obviously the Sabres opened up the home schedule yesterday. Didn't end well, as that tends to happen in Sabres land. But hey, exclusive offer, best deals in town over at Topps Friendly Markets. All right, Bills, Jets. I'll be in the city. I'll be in New Jersey on Monday. I will help you deal with the heartbreak if they lose, or the excitement if they win and take sole possession of first place in the division. Either way, join us on Shout. Post game, we can't wait. He's Ryan Talbot. I'm Matt Parrino. We will see you